My next guests know the true meaning of art imitating life. Tommy O'Neill, you will be very familiar with Tommy if you watch Fair City, because he fills the role of Detective John Deegan in the show, but he found himself on the wrong side during his younger days, and he is now part of something called The Trial, which is going to be running, rather appropriately, at a former prison, Spike Island in Cork. And with me in studio we've got Tommy, and scriptwriter on the project, who is also an educator and a researcher with Meaney University, Sarah Meaney. Sarah and Tommy, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jonathan.
Tommy, look, again, the irony of ironies, you ended up playing a cop, but he would have been running away from them in your younger years.
Absolutely, yeah.
How did you end up on the wrong side of the law?
I just decided to. I'd been working from the time I was about 8 or 9. Brought up in a good family, never any trouble. Brutalised in school till I was about 13. Left school. They got me into the hotel business rather than, they said that this will probably quieten them down. And there's a lot of drink and drugs involved in the hotel industry because of the hours and so forth. So there was no drugs in those days for me, but it was alcohol. So I started drinking very, very early.
And so you went off the rails.
Absolutely.
In the classic fashion. What was your first conviction?
God, I can't remember. I had a few, to be honest with you. I think it was drunk and disorderly. And after that then it was just, I got stopped one night and just wasn't treated very nice. So I saw the police in a whole different light at that stage, But you must remember I had a head full of madness and,
because we were talking just in the last hour about drugs and decriminalising drugs, and the idea that the threat of the law means something to stop people, young people in particular, from doing a certain thing. Didn't stop you, did it?
Doesn't stop young people. Doesn't stop. I mean, I try to work with young guys, especially the young lads, because of the gang stuff and all. And everything has changed since I was out there. I'd hate to be out there now. I'd also hate to be young now, because I spoke to a lad the other day. And he's gone down. He's going to get sentenced, I think. I'm hoping he doesn't. He's never been in trouble. But from what I hear, when you go in there now as a young guy into any of these prisons, the first thing you're asked, who are you with? Dublin 12, Dublin. So all gangs.
So in other words, it's gotten very complicated. When did you? Okay, so your first couple of offences were minor stuff.
Yeah.
What was the first big one that you ended up inside Mountjoy for?
Robbery, and bookie shop, I think it was. So
a proper full-on robbery.
Yeah. And Mountjoy was. See, I knew a lot of the guys in there, and from the street and where I grew up and everything else. Not that where I grew up it was all criminals. It wasn't. But I'd started hanging out in the street from a very early age. And again, I have to say, my family were very good. It wasn't that. I was just wild. I was wild. And someone said, "Tommy, jump off the roof." Yeah, I jump off the roof. So, but in hindsight, when you think back on it, I was diagnosed at 17 as acute and chronic alcoholic. So
17,
yeah,
not even legally entitled to do it, and you'd reached that stage.
Yeah, and so my life wasn't very good, and it was a constant battle of getting well to get sick, to get sick to get well, and all the other mental stuff that happens in between that,
And once you were inside Mountjoy, for robbery as it was on the first occasion, you couldn't drink, so therefore you probably ended up in the DTs.
I did,
and in a very bad state.
Yeah.
What was it like those first few nights of a young fella inside in prison?
Horrendous, because it's like when I got sentenced, I had a bottle of vodka stuck down my trousers, and I couldn't hear him sentencing me. All I could hear was 2 years, 3 years, and they didn't know what to do with me because they didn't catch me. Nobody knew what I had done. Nobody. I wasn't even on the list. I just had a spiritual awakening. I wanted to change my life, and I gave myself up. So even when it came to sentencing, they were kind of going, "What are we going to do with this guy?" And the first 4 nights in there, I was put down on one of the end, at the end of the block, which is beside the toilets. So you've got a lot of guys slopping out every day. They overflow. Sometimes they'd spill under the crack of your door.
And they've only recently changed that. It's slopping out as a practice up to a couple of years
ago.
I
had the DTs and I had that. And I remember praying that night saying, please, because if I wake up the way I usually wake up, I'll kill myself. I just throw myself over the balcony. And waking up in a prison, if you're in the horrors, is really not a nice place to be. It's everything that an alcoholic that's trying to get himself, well, to get out to the pub or wherever to get a cure doesn't want. It's the noise, it's the energy, So I prayed and I woke up. I felt seedy, but I didn't feel the way I should have felt. And that was my first indication, even though I was always spiritual, So, no, it wasn't nice. It was horrendous.
And was that your only time inside in the Joy?
Yeah. Well, I'd been on remand several times, you know.
And was that the spiritual awakening that you needed at that point to turn you away from the life that you had fallen into?
Yeah. It was. I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I'd leave the house with the best of intentions and I really would leave the house with the best of intentions, and that's it. Today I won't drink. And inexplicit things would happen. Like someone would come around the corner, bump into you. Oh, James, what they getting a few bob? Come on, and you're kind of going, yeah, this recovery stuff. It's and then you'd end up drinking, and then like I mightn't come home for weeks, So, it's a horrendous drug, alcohol. It really is, and we've a massive problem with it here.
So you then became an actor.
A playwright first, yeah.
Playwright first, then actor.
Yeah.
And I suppose we'll talk about the rest of your career in a bit, but you've led to this. What attracted you to this particular exhibition, the trial? It's not a play, it's an exhibition more than anything else. So what drew you to it?
Sarah phoned me, run it by me, and it didn't need to be run by me because you like to give back, So as soon as I heard what it was about, I was on board. I said, yeah, I'd love to do it. So we went down, we had a meeting, we read with the guy. It actually wasn't supposed to, was it, Sarah? It was only supposed to be a reading. Yeah. And then the stuff that we were getting out of it seemed saying, this really should be filmed. Even just if it's not going anywhere because it's so poignant. And
Sarah, to turn to you, first of all, what a wonderful choice of location. Very rare you get to have something like Spike Island, which most recently was a young offenders prison, where people, Tommy, like you, were been thrown out onto an island that you couldn't get off, Ireland's Alcatraz. So the setting is kind of ideal, but talk us through what the trial is and how people, what people get from that experience.
Well, it was actually put together by visual artist Sinead McCann, and she's down on Spike Island at the moment installing the installation, which is why she's not here today. And it originally launched in Kilmainham Jail courtroom. It's now going to be in Spike Island for 2 weeks. Then it'll go up to Lifford in Donegal and at the end of August. And then in September, people will be able to see it in Dublin Castle. And that's definitely part of the experience of it. So it is a 4-screen installation. And it's it really is a research piece, but it's a film. And so there's actors, there's Tommy, Charlie Hughes Farrell, who's a young actor from Kildare Youth Theatre, and Nellie Conroy, another amazing actor. And they bring this research to life. But because you've got it going on 4 screens, and as you say, it's in this amazing venue, people get a sort of a surround experience of the installation.
So what are the actors telling the story of?
Well, it's like I'm the script writer, but these are not my words. This is verbatim. So we did 3 months of workshops with former prisoners in the Bridge, which is a centre for prisoners and former prisoners. And they met with us every week and we talked about their stories around access to health. So issues like you mentioned, slopping out, what it's like to be in solitary confinement, coming out of prison after 30 years and maybe never having seen your family, reintegrating into society, all these issues. And we also combined that then with historical material. So there were historians working from UCD and Catherine Cox, they gave us, there was a 100-page report from an investigation into St. Patrick's Institution in the 1960s. We used a young actor to bring the voice of the children to life. And then the screens are peppered then with script from the state's response to those allegations.
When you did this, obviously just from a writing experience, were you surprised by the stories? Because we're conditioned as a society to say, you do wrong, you go to prison, lock them up and throw away the key. Were you surprised when you dug into the stories, the individual stories?
Well, I've been doing research with prisoners for a number of years now, so I wasn't surprised. But it's always, particularly when you're talking about children. I mean, one of the men we worked with was first locked up at, I think, 9 or 10. He was sent to Letterfrack. And of course, we know now the horrors that have come out of Letterfrack. So I mean, I was having to work very closely. I mean, almost because these are photocopied reports. So zooming in on 4 boys wrote letters complaining about the conditions of St. Patrick's Institution in the 1960s after they left, detailing horrors that happened not to them but to those that they witnessed. And then this led to an investigation. So, and I was pregnant at the time, and I remember having to, to read these reports and sometimes finding it very, very upsetting naturally and very disturbing.
And Tommy, the work you did for this, I mean, did you find it disturbing as well when you were reading back these reports, even having been through the process and having personal experience?
Yeah,
I was worse.
I was very surprised that it did get me like that, having been through the process. But like, since I was there, it's a long, long time ago, and I thought, well, that would be, but no, it blew me away. I mean, it was horrific. It was poignant. It was so sad. It was like a group of men, and I'm not saying, none of us is saying that people shouldn't go to jail. We all know that, me included when I did wrong. But when you look at the backstory, a lot of the men that went in, like leather frack and all of that stuff. Kind of going, what does society expect if this happens to young children, So I was very surprised. But I would have done it anyway, Jonathan, because it's such a worthwhile thing, and we can't expect people to come out of prison and be left to their own devices, because they're going to go back in. And I'm not saying there should be a red carpet rolled down for them or anything like that. But if we're really serious about doing something,
But see, we don't want to help in this country, and then that's the problem, is that we've identified what the issues are, and going back to the debate we had about drugs earlier, we know that most likely the best thing to do is to offer them alternatives, give them guidance to steer them away. If they need support coming off drugs, provide them with that. But all of that costs money, and because they're criminals and because they've broken the law, the level of sympathy amongst the general population is pretty much duck egg.
I agree, but I think they should legalise marijuana. I definitely think, because it empty a half a Mount Joy out, so the police could concentrate on catching, bigger fish, and the stuff that's out there in the streets. It's really bad for kids. It's been grown in all kinds of conditions, and sooner or later they're going to have to. They could get the tax off of that. They could. Every other country in the world is doing it, or actually a hell of a lot of other countries in the world are doing it. I don't know why Ireland is lagging behind, even if it's not just the oil for people who are sick. Yeah, but they're going to have to look at it, because I think that would help, and it would free up the prison system too. But
I tell you, if we've a detective Garda, albeit one on the telly saying it, at least it is worthy of giving consideration to. Look. Your career obviously went in a very different direction after that. You went on playwright, actor. How long have you been in Fair City now at this point?
20 years, I think.
Is it that long?
I wake up, I still can't believe it. And look at
how many people have you put away at that time? You're very successful. Your achievement rate is great.
I'm a nice cop. I'm a really nice cop on the show. But it's I love working on the show. I mean, I'm out there so long. I've got great friends. It's a great show to work on. And now I'm very, very happy doing it, and I work with a great bunch of actors, And
I mean, obviously you lost one of your own with Carl Shields passing away. I mean, that must have had a devastating impact on everybody out.
Well, I was at Brendan Grace's funeral, and I'd left Brendan's funeral about 20 minutes into the ceremony, and I was walking out, and I jumped into my car, and it just came on the news, and it was like being hit. Getting a dig. I drove straight out to RTA. I was so confused, not realising there'd be nobody there, because it's Monday. We rehearse. We just have a read through on Monday. Carl was very special. I mean, he was a friend, a great colleague, great actor, and it's like, I think it was a wake up call to a lot of people. 47 years of age. He hadn't been well though. He and in fairness, RTA were very good. They said, take some time off. And
is it weird now that you have to give him his character a tribute as well? Because something's going to have to be written to, I suppose, pay tribute to Carl through his character, and you're going to have to deal with that on screen. If not you, then the other characters who have to interact.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I was speaking to Aisling, who plays Carol. Aisling would be a great friend of mine, and it's very strange for her, and even for me when I went out there for the morning of the funeral, when I'd walk out the back of the studio, Carl always had a place. He'd be there having a smoke on the phone, and he's not there, and you're kind of going, and he never will be there again. So it's very, very sad, and and I liked him immensely. But I had great respect for him because of his attitude towards his work, you know, and he was a great help to, and that was a testament at his funeral.
Yeah, and I suppose the fact that he goes into people's homes, he was going in 2-3 nights a week.
Well, I mean, I was thinking afterwards, this is an actor said, geez, it wouldn't be bad if he died. I mean, see the turnout he made, all the front pages and the second page, the standing ovation he got when the coffin was coming in. I'm saying, you know, something, Shields, you do anything to make the front page, and you know, he'd be missed. He really will be missed. He was a lovely, as will Tom. You know, we lost Tom too a few weeks previous. So, you know, but as I said, they've been very, very good to me and to Carol. It's a good show to work on, you know.
It's a little family, isn't it? I mean, that's
it is a family,
it is
absolutely,
a family.
absolutely.
As is, I suppose every acting troupe, no matter whether you're on stage or television, is.
Yeah.
This particular performance, Sarah, and this installation, it's, as you said, it's down Spike Island for 2 weeks from.
For 2 weeks from, it's running from Friday.
Okay, so you have to get the boat out, by the way. You do have to get the boat to Spike Island, just to alert you of that in advance. But if you're a landlubber, it's going to Donegal as well, did you say?
Yeah, Donegal, Lifford after that at the end of August and through September, and then it'll be in Dublin Castle.
Okay, well, look,
up until I think November, I think it's going to be running.
For those terrified of the sea, the Dublin Castle one is probably the one to head to. Look, it sounds really interesting, and it's great to have your perspective on it as well, Tommy, from both sides, from the acting side and your own experience. Thank you for sharing. Tommy O'Neill, of course, Detective John Deegan, as many of you will know him, in Fair City, and Sarah Meaney from NUI Maynooth. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us. Thanks.
Thank you.